Et maintenant, pour continuer avec des gens bien plus intéressants, pour vous parler de choses qui sont vraiment cool sur l'IA et l'art, on voulait commencer la conférence en accueillant d'abord un artiste et un chercheur, Patrick Tresset, qui est chercheur et artiste français. Il est célèbre pour ses installations robotiques de dessin qui explorent la créativité artificielle et la présence humaine. Son travail a été présenté au Centre Pompidou, c'est pas rien, au Victoria and Albert Museum et à Ars Electronica. J'ai coupé à peu près une quarantaine d'autres lieux où il a exposé, juste pour... ses recherches en créativité computationnelle sont citées dans plus de 300 publications académiques. Ça aussi, je les ai coupées un petit peu, il pourra vous en parler. Et à Entertain AI, Patrick va partager sa vision de l'IA, de l'art et de la collaboration humain-machine. Merci Patrick d'être parmi nous.
Merci Alexandre. C'est mieux sans ou avec? Bon, de toute façon, je ne vous vois pas avec les lumières, donc ça ne change rien. Bonjour tout le monde. I'm going to do the presentation in English. It's easier for me. So je vais juste apporter mon témoignage, en fait. Ça fait longtemps que je travaille avec les technologies nouvelles, les AI, etc. Donc, je vais d'abord passer rapidement sur mon parcours, après rapidement sur ma pratique artistique, sur art et technologie, et après, je vais donner mes opinions sur l'intelligence artificielle contemporaine. Ah oui, je dois parler en anglais maintenant. Donc, en parlant de... Oh, sorry. Speaking about prehistory, those are the oldest traces I found of my own artistic practice in my parents' garden. So I come from a background, my mom did the BOZAR, and my dad was an engineer. And he was in charge of automatizing the factory where he was working, a foundry. And one day, coming back from a seminar, he brought back this computer. And you know, as a kid, I was 9 years old, but you know, you get fascinated by things and you try to do things. And I managed to do some programs that run. And that really fascinated me from the beginning, was this possibility of making autonomous systems. But I was already interested in that because I was interested in clocks. I dismantled a lot of alarm clocks. I was interested in astronomy, which is another type of autonomous system seen from a human. It's something that apparently quite natural for humans to be interested in autonomous systems. So I studied a bit computing. I did a baccalaureate in computing. Then I registered at university. I never went. And a few years later, I decided to be a painter, and I moved to London. So I worked as a painter. I had few solo shows, but I was not very good at it. And after, I think, 7-9 years, I got stuck. It just didn't make sense anymore. I had lost my spontaneity. I couldn't stand to see myself in my work. And by then, computing had evolved a lot. It totally changed from those things that were just programmable with numbers. So the internet was there, Linux had already appeared, and the programming language Python already existed. It's a bit anecdotal, it's for the geeks around. So at the time, you could go to a bookshop, buy a magazine with a Linux CD, go in the office skips, take some old computers, because at the time they were always changing their computers, and make some things that worked. And the beauty of the internet at the time, I mean, the internet was to share knowledge, right? At the time, it was not a thing, there was hardly any advertising. I mean, that's just an apartheid, it's meaningless. And so I looked on the internet and I came across the algorists. So the algorists were the pioneers of computational art that were started in 1968, etc., and are still active, except for, like, for example, so here we have Frieden Acker, Manfred Mohr, and Roman Verotko. Roman is very close to my heart, but he passed away last year. So yeah, I got inspired by those things, but they were not the contemporary artists using computational system at the time, because there was net art and things like that already at this time. But those are the ones that inspired me. And I was lucky enough to get each of them participate in my performances and do their portraits. So I didn't mention, but Harold Cohen is, in a certain way, when you speak about AI and art, is a name that comes forth. Harold was a celebrated painter. He represented the UK at the Venice Biennale. I mean, he was an established painter. And at some point, he visited Stanford University and had a residency there and was a visiting scholar and started to work on this system called ARON, where he would try to understand what it was to make images, to make artistic images. He tried to understand that. So, and he worked on ARON until he died, so it went through different evolutions, and he finished actually his last iteration. He was working also on the images, and he was really interested in finding ways to play with color, which is not something that easy with computational systems at the time. So if you are interested, there's this very good article, an inquiry into the possible roles of the computer in art, and it's still fascinating and it still works. I mean, things don't change. You know, things don't change. We have the impression that they do, but they don't. So inspired by those pioneers, they were using pen plotters to produce their artworks. And because I was fascinated in drawings, it made sense for me to get also those machines. And at the time, they were very cheap to purchase, and they are very cheap, very easy to program. So I spent a bit of time playing with computer vision and things like that to produce drawings. And from the beginning, what I try to do is to explore the drawing practice from another perspective, from a distance, because that was my problem when I was still a painter. So I lost my spontaneity, and also I couldn't stand seeing my presence in the drawing. So using computational systems, I could have a distance and not be there, but still be there because I did all the programming, or I still do all the programming. So I worked on that, and it was amazing at the time. If you used Linux, you would have access to programs made by the best labs in the world. That was the beauty of it. It's still the beauty of it. And so I worked first on my own, and then I felt limited. I knew I needed a more rigorous approach to my work. So I thought, oh, I should join a university. And at this time, at Goldsmiths College in London, they were turning the computing department into an arts and computing department, and also AI department. So I joined as a mature student, and I did a master, and then a PhD, and the title of the thesis that I didn't write was a computational evocation of the drawing practice. And so it was about drawing, trying to understand drawing and make systems that could react to reality and make gestures that will end up being drawings. And rapidly, I understood that to produce drawings, to make drawings that work as drawings, I needed to have an arm in motion to perform the drawing. So like that, there would be the history of the drawing inscribed on paper. Because some drawings work like that. When you look at the drawing in your mind, you recover all the movements and the intention of the artist. So I realized I needed to use a robotic arm. And so I designed an arm, and the robot I designed as the minimum necessary to do observational drawing. It has an eye and a planar arm. But it's very stylized. And so I was lucky enough for the PhD to get some funding, and using the funding, I rented a booth in an art fair and showed my first robot. And I got very surprised, because for me at the beginning it was only about the drawing practice. And then I exhibited the robot, and I realized that it was an amazing actor. So that I had this actor that I could use to tell other stories, still using mark making as a thread, but to tell other stories. Still, So that was the first system. It was a very basic prototype, this one. It kind of evolved after. Oh, I forgot to say something. Yeah, you can play I'm going to play this video. If you can play the first video. I forgot. So it's going to be a very dense... oh, if you can play the first video, that would be great. Thank you. So it's really a condensed summary of my practice. So that's my best-known piece. I've shown it here in Montreal at the Biennial. And those reactions of the audience everywhere in the world, they're the same reactions. So I use the actors to explore different themes that are classical in the history of art. But the drawing practice is still very, very important for me. It's still central to my installation. Each time I install an installation, most of the time I travel, I retune the system until I'm satisfied with the drawing. So I'm still a drawing practitioner. And during the pandemic, I couldn't exhibit anymore, so I started to do pure digital work, which is very nice because it takes far less time than doing installations. Where I explore the same themes about the human experience and more the mundane, the normal, the little things, like reading a book. It's not so little these days, but. And obviously, because I was a painter before, I also used robots and computational systems to produce paintings. And I was invited to go to Constance University, where they had a robot called E-David, where I went in 2013 and I devised this technique. So I'm still involved in the process. I do the stupid job of putting thin layers of transparent paint on the things, with a bit of color. So I collaborated with other artists or companies and things here, with Miguel Chevalier at the Art Center in Seoul. I collaborated also with Hanson Robotics. But it's always interesting to collaborate with others because we arrive somewhere different, somewhere where no one would have been, neither of us would have been. Thank you. It's very new, this thing, and I find it a bit fast and difficult to speak over it. But anyway, I'll get used to it for the next presentation. So, yeah, often when I show my work, well, before this big thing with AI, it was, how does it work? How does it work? I mean, some people get it and don't ask any questions. And nowadays, is it made with AI? Is there AI inside? Of course, it's what I've been doing for a long time, and it looks like that, but in a certain way, it doesn't matter, who cares? as an artist, it doesn't matter. I could use a pencil or whatever. It just happens to be that my way of writing, what I am more comfortable with, is with computation. That's it. And robots and mechanics and stuff. So I'm going now to talk, to present some work. It's really a preview. It's really new work. And that is using contemporary AI. So I am there. So it's a project. It's part of the ISEA project. So I'm not going to say this name because there's agent in the name, and then people nowadays think about different things when you say agent. So it's a project between Goldsmith and Constance. There are psychologists, sociologists, roboticians, computer scientists, and a few artists involved in those projects. I'm lucky to be one of them. And so my project is called, I'm very bad with titles, a responsive embodied system for visual storytelling exploration. I mean, it does say what it does, what it's going to do in theory. So as advisor, I have Marcus Wolfmeyer. I've been talking to Marcus since 2018. So he is a researcher at DeepMind Robotics. So it's nice because DeepMind Robotics, they do pure research. So there's no products or anything. It's very nice. So we've been conversing. Obviously, now the conversation has been a bit more intense with the recent development. But it's nice. So I think...
Okay, so now I'm shooting a video, so you have to be very careful.
So it's very recent.
I would like you to test your precision with every tool you have.
So like any robotic video, it's a bit accelerated now.
Where you put the hatching, can you do also hatching, but in a different direction, 90 degrees different rotation? Good, well done.
So, yeah, it's a demo. So a few years back, that would have been totally amazing, right? And I was totally amazed, actually, the first time I did it. I was like, wow, he just did what I asked. I mean, it is amazing. I say, oh, test everything, test what you can do, and it does it. But nowadays, it's like it has almost lost its magic. We're not even surprised. But anyway, it's still amazing. Still, in a few days, to be able to make a system, a robot that understands sentences and direction is quite amazing. But anyway, it's a lot of fun because that's the idea. That's why I like working with technology and with AI. I hate the term AI. It's computation. AI is just... Anyway, I love the exploration, especially with the systems. They are so vast. And you really have... It's an adventure, and you go in places where nobody has been before, and you can play and things like that. And it is the idea of this project that I'm working on. It's the same thing as a sketch. A sketch is an adventure, but as a human, you end up taking the same path over and over again. And the idea was to have a robotic companion to pull me in one direction or another to arrive in unexpected places. So I started on that, and I started to do the same thing as I did before, portraits or still life and things like that. And it just didn't excite me. And then I had I was looking at the video of the people looking at the installation, and I need to get in this state with the amazement, becoming a kid again. And I started to work on this idea to work on storytelling. So playing with the robot, telling little stories, and the robot answers, and doing little lines and things. But it's a work in progress. But it's a lot of fun. That's the beauty of it. So yeah, also working on a new arm, this time with fingers, so like that you can do things very fast and very precise. So, yeah, about AI and this kind of thing. Personally, and I don't think it's because I've been using this kind of technology for a long time, but for me, AI, it doesn't change anything at all to the question an artist has to answer, you know, what, why, and how to finance it also, and not necessarily in this order. It just doesn't change deeply what it is to be an artist. So this talk is from the perspective of an artist, a researcher, developer, rather than a user of AI. And so when I work first as an artist, where I get the concept. Then I work as a researcher, where I do research, like I've shown you, in computation, in AI, exploring models and what they can do, trying to do new things. Then I code the system to arrive to a prototype. And then myself as an artist, I get back, and I try to produce something artistic with it. And generally, I remove most of the research to arrive to something very simple. So all my work, maybe that's too much technology, but it's about humanness. And what I think has not changed since we are sapiens. There is something, you know, there are a lot of things that haven't changed. So talking about art and technology, because nowadays there is this thing that it seems to still be special to mix art and technology. When in fact, if you look at that, this rock, it's a bit of ochre from the Bloomberg cable in South Africa. So that's 70,000 to 100,000 years old. And if you look at it, those marks is made with a tool, with a technology, and the graphical language is also a type of technology. So a mixture of art and technology has always been there. It is the nature of art in a certain way. Even the origin of the word art comes from ars, which means skills, craft, and technical knowledge. And if you translate that in Greek, you arrive to techne. So those two things have always been mixed. I don't know at what point it became separated. And so if we speak about technology, we can take an example, so the hammer, yeah? So the hammer can be used to produce something utilitarian, here a ladder to go higher. You can, if you don't know how to use it, you can bang your fingers. You can hit the head of your neighbor. Or you can sculpt a beautiful sculpture, right? And any technology, more or less, if you think of it, you can use it in those different manners, especially with conceptual art, where you can use anything to do anything. And so there's always the question, we've already talked about it in the previous intervention, is AI a danger for artists? Is it going to change art? Yeah, I don't think so. Artists will always find a way to do art. The problem is always to find the finances to be an artist, but that is always difficult and tricky, and we have to find ways. That doesn't change. Like, the ways to get finance for art have changed throughout centuries, and unfortunately it's like that. So, and about the changing art, is it going to totally transform art? Memo Atkan, who is an artist who has been working with deep learning for a long time, was at the same exhibition in Beijing in December, and there was a talk like that where we were talking about artificial intelligence and art. He said, oh, think about the drum machine. The drum machine, when it appeared, people say, oh, the drummers are going to disappear. And in fact, it didn't do that, but it opened the path to have other genres like hip-hop or dance music or techno. And with computational system, it's the same thing with AI. Because they still have paintings. You go to an art fair, it's mainly paintings, things that you put on the wall. So the use of AI in art is not new. You've seen Harold Cohen before, but for example, in the late 80s, there was William Latham and Stephen Todd that did those things using evolutionary algorithms, which is another type of AI, but not human-based intelligence, but animal or evolution intelligence. So you don't try to imitate the human intelligence, but God's intelligence. It's wonderful, no? Well, I hope so. Yeah, it's okay. Yes, there's no extremist here. So here, in 2002, you had Luc Stills and Olafur Eliasson at the museum, in French, Museum de la Ville de Paris. So it's a box, you put your eye in it, and the system looks at the color of the eye, and inside there are two agents, I mean, it's a computer, that develop a language to talk about the color of the eyes. John McCormack has been working since the early 2000s on systems based, again, on biology and on evolution, and this time on systems that inherit like snails or seashells that build their own environment, and he used that to drive robots. You can see here the type of drawings it produces. There was an installation with David Lynch and Pierre Oudroyer, who worked on curiosity and language evolution and interaction with men. This installation, over the few months that was exhibited, the robots would evolve a language to describe their environment. So some quick thoughts on AI. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of them, and not all positive, which is great, because I was not intending to be positive. But it's good to know that I'm not the only one. So I was talking about technology and the hammer, yeah. And that happens a lot. That happened here. Is it? No, that happened actually in a conference where I was invited recently, and in the press release, somebody used ChatGPT to write the press release. And so they were, under my name, there were an artwork that I never produced or never thought about it as part of my artworks. It's an example, but that to write a few lines to use ChatGPT. But I mean, there are things that are far more dangerous than that with those technology, because they are very powerful, so it's very easy to be misused, and it's the same thing for artists. It is very important to be able to master those technologies. So obviously, with those technology, you can do bad stuff, you know, disinformation, manipulation, etc., etc. But obviously, you should be able to do utilitarian things. And look at that. That's the United Nations Sustainability Goals, and it's supposed to be done by 2030. I don't think we're in the right path, but we could use artificial intelligence to work on those things. I mean, you can go look, there's no poverty, zero hunger, good health, well-being, quality education. And a lot of those things could be helped with artificial intelligence, especially if we look also in non-human artificial intelligence to solve all those issues. I mean, you can. I'm sure you all like that, where at the moment not many. There's a kind of pessimism around. So, bad technology, you can make art with it. And for me, but we always, speaking about AI and things like that, often the role of art comes, the question, oh, but why? Why is the art? Why not use a machine just by itself to produce art? What's the point of the artist? So for me, it's that. I imagine the Cro-Magnon, or even before, the sapiens in the sand doing some marks like that, and the other of the tribes looking like that, stupefied, and then the thing say, oh yeah, cool, I found my place in society. And for me, it's art. It gives me a place in society and to be able to share my thoughts with you. Thank you.